Joe Rogan, the most influential podcaster on planet Earth, just made a pretty surprising argument for Jesus, and it's gone viral. Take a look.
Yes. And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on that one.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus makes more sense.
Billy, what do you think about that comment?
I mean, the entire conversation that he had was fascinating. I think the comment itself is very telling because this is a guy who, as far as we understand, I believe he's described himself as at some points an atheist, at least agnostic, but yet he's having all these conversations about faith lately. And so to see somebody who you assume didn't believe actually make a comment about Jesus Christ and the resurrection being more believable than some of these other things like the Big Bang, that's a pretty incredible statement for somebody like him with the influence he has to be making.
And he's having a bunch of apologists on his show like Wes Huff. And so, Joe, if you're watching this, let me recommend a few names. Not that I necessarily endorse every argument that they've ever made, but someone like a William Lane Craig, John Lennox, James Torr, Sean McDowell, Michael Icona. Let's have them on your show, brother. Because here's my encouragement, my man. I'm a natural skeptic. And my path to having my doubts answered was more of the archaeology side of it, which I will get to in a second. But if your holdup is science, man, there's a lot of good stuff in there. This is a big book. This is not an endorsement, but just to have it. This book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh and Sean McDowell. If you're watching this and you're not even a believer by any means, this is a good place to start. It's kind of long. But it's some good stuff in there. And so my encouragement to my friend here who's watching is that I know, let me say it this way. It's all true. There really was a person named Jesus of Nazareth. He really did live in a very real place. He was born in Bethlehem. He really was crucified. All the names in the Bible, the goalpost for faith has been moved so much where people used to say, oh, this is all fairy tales. You can't prove any of it. And then like every 5 seconds, they're finding something in the ground in Israel where it's like, so I guess Hezekiah was a real dude. King David, real guy. All these places, real. There's a YouTube channel, Billy, that I love called Expedition Bible, if you're really into archaeology. But we're talking about science. We're talking about the Big Bang. Billy, what would you say if you could talk to Joe right now when he's kind of on this precipice of seeing the validity of the Christian argument?
Yeah, I would say keep digging. I mean, the fact that here's the interesting thing. Very few people go back. I mean, there are lots of debates about the Big Bang, but the fact he was going back to the moment, of the creation in which we are living was actually very interesting. And I would tell him to keep moving forward and look at the different pieces, but he already seems to be doing that. I mean, the fact that he's juxtaposing the Big Bang against the resurrection, this idea that we came from nothing. One of the things, just to mention this, because I think it's important, when you're talking to atheists and agnostics, they will often say, oh, okay, great. Well, where did God come from then? Right? It's sort of this, like, they think it's a checkmate argument, but the reality is, obviously, we have human minds and they're limited in how we think. And Rogan even said this. He said, we're born and we die. Maybe we're placing biological limitations on our understanding of the universe because we assume everything is created and dies. God could have always just been there. But the point is, both sides have that argument because where did this little thing come from that sparked everything? Where did all of that come from, right?
If you're watching this, I might step on some toes here, Billy. If you're watching this, you believe in miracles. What do I mean by that? You either believe in the virgin birth of Jesus or the virgin birth of the entire universe or another religion. But my point being is this. The idea that everything came from nothing doesn't make logical sense. And so people will say, well, what about, dark energy or gravity? Dark energy and gravity, that's not nothing. And so to me, you believe that that trillions of stars just blasted into existence from nothing. To me, that screams like a bigger miracle. People used to say, the old people, centuries ago, would look up at the night sky and see these dots in the sky. I'm like, well, there must be a God. But now that we have all this crazy technology and we can realize that there's billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, an unfathomable universe where we can't even begin to describe it, I don't know which one is a harder miracle to believe. So to me, I actually think the burden is on us. Now that we can see into the universe, it screams, to me at least, more of a creator than when we used to look up in the night sky and see dots in the sky. And I think that's scriptural. I want to leave you with one Bible verse. It comes from Ecclesiastes 3:11. And I think if you're watching this and you're struggling with your faith, I get it. I've been there. But I think you're closer to God than you realize. My buddy Joe, you're watching this, my man. God's after you, brother. And Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, among other things, but he says, he has also set eternity in the human heart. Man, whenever I try to run away or think myself out of belief, there's something in my heart that screams of eternity because I think God put it in there. So, Billy, I'll give you the last word on this pretty amazing statement by Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it's the God-shaped hole that we hear a lot about that we all have, and we're all trying to figure out how to fill that. And I think when you look at the universe, not only can something come from nothing, we know that that's not possible, but for it to be orderly, right? This idea that it would happen, the Big Bang, and that everything would be orderly and it would expand and we would be floating around on this planet as human beings with animals and trees and everything working in perfection. It's nonsensical, but I would just leave you with this. I would leave people with the idea that when an atheist or an agnostic says, well, where did God come from? The answer is, well, where did the materials to create the Big Bang come from? Both sides have the same problem. I think one side makes much more sense, the order and the intent that God created everything with. That is the side that actually has the facts on it, as you were stating, Raj. So we can leave it there today.
Joe, my brother, Jesus is after you, my friend. Let him in. Anyone who seeks will find. Billy Hollowell, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.